Welcome to the show. Welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Podcast. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka the Batman, here in the city of Gotham. All right, y'all. Now look, we have a lot to cover, or I'm gonna try a lot to cover, or at least a lot to try to cover in a short period of time. And we're gonna, hey, it's gonna be, and you know what, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Let me put it that way. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Okay, so let me start off with saying, first of all, that wow, it's almost to a point. I gotta look at my notes even to start. Let's start off with the first things first. Okay, as you all know, former President Donald Trump, there was an assassination. Most of you know, if you haven't been following or been under a rock, an assassination attempt. Now I'm gonna address a lot of this was happened. I would say, well, within the last 10 days, and Trump, the assassination attempt is one of them. Excuse me. Now let's start with this for a few minutes. And see, this is the beauty part about why we call this show. Why we call it this show. Okay, as you look over my shoulder here, why we say intellectual. Okay, and I'm gonna tilt my head right over my head too, as it says right here, radio.com. Intellectual radio, i.e., this is the beauty part about this, people. Intellectual. Okay, this is the part. This is where we have to start asking not only the right questions, but we have to start asking critical questions, and we have to start being critical thinkers. And this is one of the problems with us as Black people. We're not critical thinkers. There are some of us who think. There's some of us who are critical thinkers, because those are the ones that actually make things move. Then there are some that think they're critical thinkers, but pretend because they just want to fit in. And then there are some who know absolutely positively crap about nothing, and they're just, it is what it is. Now, let's start with that first and foremost. The history of the Secret Service, and most of you, and this is the part that where it comes into knowing your history instead of sleepwalking through your life, saying, "Oh, I don't know," like some booby prize retard. Okay, this is a problem. We are in a very critical stage in our lives. This age where we're at is very critical. People are talking about the Supreme Court. In actuality, this is because most of you don't understand the law. You don't understand the process of the law. You don't understand the Constitution because some of you don't read it. Some of you've never seen it. Some of you have and take no interest in it. What does that happen? What does that do? That makes you a fool. The Supreme Court exercised the Constitution the way it was written. The way it was written. Now, what's happening is that we have these crybabies, and I'm talking about these damn Democrats who are the crybabies in the room. Oh, while we're talking about this, let's go to this right here. See, once again, I don't want to forget this. Also, part of my notes. Let's take this representative who worked 30 years in the mailroom of Congress, which is the House of Representatives. As I've said before, the House of Representatives is the mailroom, which means don't nothing get done, don't nothing move. The House of Representatives, they create bills. Well, see, they create bills to serve their interests. Okay, let's talk about this representative, Sheila Jackson, who vapor locked and passed away over the weekend. Okay, Sheila Jackson, for most of you don't know, was the Democrat of a state of Texas, the state of Texas, where 2 years after slavery had been abolished, they still had niggas in slavery. You know how stupid she had to you know how stupid that sounds and how stupid she had to be. These are the people who enslaved you. Not to mention, and if I'm going hard, this is tonight. Tonight is that night. And if I'm going hard, this woman was, that's why I said was, no longer is, but was the mother of our other jackass Democrat mayor, Brandon Johnson. She was the mother of his top political top advisor, Jason Lee, Jackass Johnson's top advisor. You kind of want you just so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it not? Also, just so that you all know, if you want to comment, because this is going to be a very hot political topic show tonight. So the phone lines are open, 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. Now, this woman spent 30 years in the House of Representatives, and she did what? There was no aspiration to be a senator where you can actually get things done. You take that other knucklehead, Danny Davis. You take Bobby Rush. What's wrong with you? We only have one black senator in the Senate. Scratching your head, okay? Scratching your head. See, one of the problems is that why some of us are latching on to the Democrats is because we've been culturally conditioned and we've been told this is what first and foremost, look at the state of the union right now. All this was done by Democrats. I'm going to go further back. If you go back you go back to 1961, when Kennedy ran, Kennedy was a Democrat. Not only that, but he was an Irish Democrat. Irish Democrat. Okay, now let's make no mistake about that. Irish don't like that. Irish do not care for the darkies or the blacks. They don't care too much for them. But they use us as muscle, as votes. That's what they use us for. And see, when we start to wake up and stop being the footmat, stop being the carpet, the doormat where they wipe their feet on, that they've been doing for the last 50 years. So you go down the road. You go down with Kennedy. Kennedy's quote, "I'm going to help with the civil rights. I'm going to push this along." He had King come in there, and they had the little soiree, and I do mean their soiree. Then Kennedy got a moonroof, November 22nd of 1963 in Dallas. Go figure. Johnson steps in. Now, here's the thing about Johnson. Johnson was his handpicked man, and the reason that Kennedy picked. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna lead you like you lead a horse to water. But here's the thing, people, leading a donkey, which is a stupid animal that you have to lead everywhere it goes. And this is what the Democratic, and not to mention that this is the emblem of the Democrats. A jackass. Wake up, people. So what Johnson did, what Kennedy did with Johnson, he made Johnson his running mate because why? Kennedy needed the vote that needed those Southern black votes. He needed the Southern black, BALCK votes. How stupid do you all have to be? Then Johnson comes in, he takes over, and he completely demolishes some of Kennedy's policies. But then we go boo-hooing and crying. We go boo-hooing and crying to Massa Johnson. What about our rights? Like y'all going back to like this is Gone with the Wind. You the slaves that's crying back to going back to crying at the plantation of terror from Gone with the Wind. We's is good. We need these rats. What's wrong with y'all? This is where we're at right now in 2024. We're lackeys, bootlickers, doormats. They got they got our heads pointed to they got our head and our asses pointed to the ground, to where we can't even no longer look up and and as respectable respectable people. And then the sad part is that we have indoctrinated our children into this into this BS. Then you move to Johnson. Then you move to, when you move from Johnson, then you go into Nixon. Nixon was a Republican. Nixon did some things. He ran some things. He got some things done. But if you look at each and every, with the exception, now I'm gonna say this, with the exception, and some of you, when you know, you probably know, but you probably do and you probably don't. And then some of you, if you're listening, you don't remember him. Jimmy Carter, in his time, was one of the best Democratic presidents. One of the best Democratic presidents. Now, I know some of you all want to, boo-hooing about Barack Obama. You know what? Cry me a river with that turncoat placeholder. Cry me a river. Cry me a river. Jimmy Carter was a peanut farmer and ran and won. No different than Donald Trump running on a bet. A bet. Won. Not only that, but he ran on a bet, got the nomination, and won. People, and I'm not just saying black people, I'm not saying black people, Hispanic people, and white people. People saw more money under the Trump administration than they had in a long time. In a long time. But I don't want to stray too far because this is I'm gonna lead to each one. Now, we get to this part to where we look at this situation with Donald Trump and the assassination attempt. Okay. I'm going to give you a little history lesson on the Secret Service. Okay. The Secret Service actually was before they became who they became who they were. The Secret Service were a small security detail or detachment attached to the president. Okay, it was a man named Alan Pinkerton who had a security firm. Plus, he had a security firm where he guarded dignitaries when they came to America or into Washington, and also he handled the Treasury's money, he handled the Treasury's money. He was in charge of the security. The Secret Service came into place after Lincoln was shot and killed. After Lincoln was shot and killed, and the man who actually gave the order was the Secretary of Defense, Stanton. He ordered the Union soldiers, those soldiers that were there, and part of the detail, to go to the other members of the cabinet and protect them. This went into effect the following year, that we have to have a security detail for the president and his family in 1865. That's how long the Secret Service has been around. It was instituted in 1865, and it's been going ever since. Now, if we go down the line and think about the number of presidents that have been assassinated or the assassination attempts, there have been three assassinations and three attempts, including President Donald J. Trump. This is where you have to learn your history about your country. If you want to understand about where you live in the atmosphere, you have to know the history of what you're doing. If you're at a job, you need to know the history of your job to understand what it entails, the requirements, how to operate and function in that. And that's the same thing in politics. You have to understand how they work, because understand, politics is a job. And you have to understand the nature. You have to understand the nature of politics. You have to understand the beast in order to deal with it, how to handle it, how to manage it. So do your homework, do your fact check. So we had we had Lincoln, um, Garfield, and Kennedy, who were the three presidents that were assassinated. And the three attempts, you had Taft. Well, actually, let me get on. Actually, four, because um, uh, 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 Teddy Roosevelt, there was an assassination attempt made on his life when he went to Mexico. Then you had Howard Taft, Ronald Reagan, now Donald Trump. This in itself is an embarrassment for the Secret Service, because you have one effing job, and that's to protect this man. One job. So today on the Hill, the woman who oversees, or like I said, truth be told, who is in charge of the Secret Service, was called to the Hill by the Senate Senate committee to ask and to give an account on what and why. How did this happen? Why did they allow? First and foremost, the question is, how did this happen, and why was it allowed? That you allowed someone to breach the perimeter. And the killing part is, this individual managed to work his way past local police, Secret Service, FBI, climb up the side of a shed and set up a perch. And not only that, this guy, which is unbelievable, this guy, what they call, for those who are familiar with not fire, familiar with firearms, and familiar with shooting and targeting, this guy had what they call a sight line. A sight line means an unobstructed view to your target. A sight line. Now, which is to a degree unheard of for anybody to have that. John Hinckley Jr. He managed to work his way through the crowd and open fire, wounding 3 people. A DC cop, Brady, and Ronald Reagan. Sightline. The same thing with Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald had a sightline, unobstructed, as well as this individual who attempted to assassinate President Trump. A sightline. Now, this individual was shot and killed by Secret Service, who observed. The killing part is that he was observed 10 minutes prior to the president coming on stage. And not only that, but they had information that there was a breach in security. They completely destroyed this woman, the head of the Secret Service, this afternoon during a Senate hearing. Completely destroyed her. And not only that, but the pressure is mounting on her to step aside. All she could say was the secrets that we failed on that day. Both Democrats and Republicans completely reamed her a new one. One of the politicians told her that she was full of sugar honey iced tea. You don't even have the information that we requested. Oh, and her, when she said, "Well, do you have the documents that we requested?" Her response was, "I got to get back to you." No, you don't need to get back to me. You're full of sugar honey iced tea. Full of that. So what happens now is that you have this situation, and even if if it was turned around, first and foremost, this is that I don't care what candidate is running, whether it's Biden and Harris, Trump and Vance. we should be able to disagree without becoming violent. We should be able to disagree without becoming violent. Now, I will say this: a certain measure of violence in politics sometimes is necessary. Sometimes it's necessary, but you have to understand. You have to understand the context of when you say a certain level of violence. Sometimes a argument can be violent between two people who are having a heated discussion. Cussing somebody out, slamming your hand on the table, probably even turning the table, throwing a cup of coffee in somebody's face, or hitting them throwing a cup of coffee at somebody, or hitting them in the face with a hot apple pie right as it come out the oven. A certain measure sometimes is necessary. Sometimes. This, no, I don't agree with this at all. I don't agree with that. But what was most riveting, as I say, what was most riveting after that man took a shot, and if anyone, okay, if you watched the video and you heard, you not only did you watch the video, but you heard the shots being fired, up to 8 rounds were being fired. And this is the crazy part. This individual, now we have to, to a certain degree, we can start with the conspiracy theories, we can start with the speculation or what have you. But this guy here, someone, I'm not going to even go down that path. But the type of weapon that he was using, or that he was using, was an AR-15. That's an assault rifle. You don't use an assault rifle for sniping. You just don't do it. You just don't. Not an assault rifle. If you're going to do this, or the preferred weapon of choice would be a rifle with a bolt action rifle, and using either a 30-06 or a 30-08 round. That's what you're using. Why? Because one, that's a high velocity round. This is an individual, whether he was trying to make a name for himself, or be whatever he wanted to be, or be all he could be, it's not the rifle of choice that you would use. But what was riveting that people saw and they won't forget is that after this man took a bullet to the ear, and let's not forget that there were 3 other people that were shot, 2 wounded, two wounded. There were 3 people shot, 1 fatal, 2 others were wounded. This man, after Secret Service rushed the stage and cover, this man got back up on his feet, pumped his fist in the air with blood streaming down his face. And you have to, to a degree, you have to say, you know what? That dude got some dog in him. He's got some dog in him. And you can't, you know what? And personally, that's like I said, and everybody, you don't have to share my opinion, but personally, I gotta give it to him. After that dude with the fist pump, even after Secret Service was trying to rush him off the stage, get him off, this dude was still pumping his fist all the way to the car. Half his ear, with portion of his ear bloody and missing, and blood, and his face all bloody. You call some people say that's a stand-up guy, and I have to agree. Yeah, he's a stand-up guy. Now, not only that, but now this was the same week that the RNC, or the Republican National Convention, took place. And this guy got out there. And let me let me start with the Vice President Vance. Now, you know what? That's a guy I like his style. I like I like his style. Take no prisoners, give no quarter type of attitude. I mean, this guy comes from and let's be true, let's be honest. If you do your research, this guy comes from the lowest of low. This guy comes from the mountains of Ohio. He comes from the mountains and hills of Ohio. He comes from the coal miners. He's what they call from the Appalachian Trail. That's where he's from. He made it clear this is how he did it. He came from nothing and became and made and became something. The fact that his mother was a junkie, and she managed to turn herself around. The point being, people were talking about J.D. Vance, is that now there's really no excuse for anybody not to achieve anything in this country, black, white, or brown. There's no excuse. If you can't achieve what you're trying to achieve, you're not trying hard enough. You either don't want it or you're not trying hard enough. The same thing with Donald Trump. So you all see when people talk about him, this is another man who worked his way up. Because understand something, his father didn't give him anything. During the summers, he would work in the hotels that his father owned, made him work for what he wanted. There were no free lunches. No free lunches for J.D. Vance or Donald Trump. No free lunches. So people are hating on that because why? These are people who came practically from nothing. Nothing. And not only that, but here's the beauty of this. People are then now that things have changed. Now I'm finna slide right into the meat of this. I'm finna cut right into the meat of this nice juicy roast. I'm finna cut right into it. Now, when Vance gave his acceptance speech, the everyday people, and when I say everyday people, I'm talking about people, I'm talking about anybody that's listening, anybody that's watching this show. You're everyday people. You know why you're everyday people, everyday ordinary people? Because you get up and you go to a job and you try to do the best that you can with what you got. You try to make the ends meet to the point where the ends are running over each other. You're trying to take that little bit of money and stretch it from this Wednesday all the way to Wednesday, the first Wednesday in August. We have to get past this thing that we are being held back by white America. No, my niggas, you're being held back. You're holding yourselves back because you keep following the wrong group of people. You keep following these goats, these donkeys, these jackasses, instead of instead of linking yourself with something that has power, such as the lion, such as the elephant. Those are two of the most powerful animals in the animal kingdom. They take no prisoners. They take no prisoners. They give no quarter. You step into their house, they're gonna tear your ass off. Make no mistake about it. See, I'm not worried about being led by a goat. You should be worried about being led by a goat or a donkey. You should be concerned, very concerned about being led by a jackass. Do you know that this animal, that the value of this animal, the value of this animal is so low so you can't even give it away. And this is where we're at with this mentality of democracy, to where they continue to take and take and take and not give a damn thing back. You take these two men at the RNC, Trump, Vance. The plan is to give back. And I'm gonna touch briefly on this thing that people are so worried about. See, this is the part about get your head out of your asses and understand what the what people are talking about, the 2025 game plan is. You got to understand, they're not endorsing that because it's not part of a. It's not a plan. It's an idea. It's part of an ideology. This is not that. This is not that. And understand something. Even Trump, and now going to Trump's speech the following night, the man said, being shot changes a man's perspective on things. And he's absolutely right. Being shot, being shot changes a man's views, changes a man's perspective. I've never seen an individual, well, I'll take it back. It's been a long time since I've seen an individual galvanize people in a way to where, or to become relatable to the everyday, to the everyday Joe. To the everyday Joe. To that coal miner, to those coal miners in the hills of Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and West Virginia, Kentucky, or as they call it, the Rust Belt. Or who can relate? Here's the other thing: who can relate to the farmers in Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas? Who can relate to these individuals? That's the world of agriculture. And when he made it clear on what the plan for the country is, and he said, and I quote, "This is not about blacks, whites, or Hispanics. This is about Americans." When you talk about closing the borders, and when he said, and as Vance said, and when Vance addressed it, as well as Trump addressed the issue with immigration, we have to get that under control. When you have 10,000 immigrants pouring into this country a day, 10,000 a day, what are we supposed to do with them? Then when you have these open borders that are that this open border policy by these two jackasses, Joe and Harris, and I promise, and you know, and I promised the studio that I will not use the famous term or the famous word that everybody's using for Biden and Harris. So you know, I said I gave him my word that I wouldn't use it. So that's what. So you all know what I want to say, but when I give my word on something, I stick to it. Okay. When you have these particular things happening, how are we supposed to support that? Look, I have no problem with it with immigration. I have no problem with immigrants coming here. I have no problem with that. But just do it the right way. Do it the right way. And not only that, but see, here's the problem with that is that the cartels, which is part of them, which is Mexico, is supposedly trying to address that. You're having the cartels use immigrants to transport drugs and weapons across the border. This is not something I heard or made up. This is a fact. This is factual. Factual. Now, the meat. So yesterday, roughly about 11:35, 11:35 our time, 12:35 DC. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the jackass that was that was a senator since 1970, since the 1970s. I want to say 73, 74. This is the same person. It's once again, you got to wake up and understand these people are not for you. They have no interest for you. Because see, when I put this out there, Now you got to understand this. Look at this. Look at this for what it is. And I'm gonna deal with Joe, but then I'm gonna move over to jackass number 2. You have Joe Biden. This is the guy who was in the Senate for most of his political life. This is the guy who created the Crime Bill Act to put most of you niggas in prison, to put your sons in prison, to put your boyfriends, to put your husbands, to put black men, to take black men off the map and put them in prison. And not only that, but to incarcerate them until the until the next millennium. This is the guy that's done that. But you know what? I'm gonna say this, and it's funny. It's funny that this is a guy who created a crime bill to purposely imprison black men. And especially the part that should stick with you, that this man was putting black men in prison for menial criminal offenses. A black guy gets caught with a half a pound of weed, and a white guy, 2 guys, a white guy and a black guy. The white guy and the black guy get caught with the same amount of weed. The white guy's gonna get probation, community service. They're gonna even put him through a drug program. That nigga, he's going under the jail for a half a pound of weed. But this is the man. This is the man that you looking at. Okay, well, since we said, okay, let me repeat myself. If you get so let me do something. Because it was mentioned to me. So if we say this, okay, you get a hunky and a nigga, both caught with the same amount of drugs, the same amount. The hunky gonna get probation, community service, and they're gonna put him through a drug program. Then if he finishes the drug program, they're gonna give his ass a job. You take that nigga, they're gonna put him in they're gonna put him in the worst prison that they can find. And not only that, they might put him in solitary confinement. Joe Biden is the guy who created this. Who created the crime bill? Wait, there's more. Kamala Harris. This mulatto, because she's not black. She's not white. And we need to stop. See, this is the other thing that we need to stop doing. She's not black, people. She's not. Her mother is Indian, or what they call Asian American, if there's such a word. And her dad is black. This is a broad who never had a tough day in her life. She went to Berkeley, then she went to Howard, and became out a lawyer. Who has no idea who has no idea on what it is to make biscuits, for somebody to take, for their mama to make homemade biscuits, some butter, and then because you can't afford, or you don't have name brand syrup, you get a couple of cups of sugar and some water, and you make you some homemade syrup. Now, if you want some flavor, you add a little butter or maybe a little bit of cinnamon if you want some flavor or color. She don't know what that is, because she's never been poor or disadvantaged. J.D. Vance understands that, because his daddy left and his mama was a junkie, and they had to eat or scrap together what they could. Also, now that Joe, they convinced him. Here's the thing, and what's really poetic, and I look at this as poetic justice. Joe Biden has now been sentenced to a personal prison of dementia. His own personal prison of Alzheimer's or dementia. Now, I'm not making light of that, but you know what? When you set out to do harm to others, this is what it looks like. When you get this guy that can't walk up a flight of stairs, when he gets to trailing off, like he's gonna go to sleep, that's a some neurological issue. But you know what? That's what I call poetic justice, because we have to ask ourselves how many black men are incarcerated because of that policy, that crime bill policy. There's some men still in prison to this very day because of that bill. But Joe Biden is sentenced to his own personal prison. This dude don't even know where he's at half the time. He's got to get the turnkey, Jill, to help him around. That's the irony of this. The irony. Now that Joe has now that Joe can go get can get his bib and go get his bib and his sippy cup and his diaper, he can go somewhere and sit down now, because Jill can really now she can take care of that lost child. You got this other jackass. You know something? My grandmother said something. My grandmother told me this years ago, and this is referencing. This is almost to a point to where you look at this, and these are people you cannot trust. And make no mistake about it, you can't trust them. She told me. She said what she said. With if you ever see if you ever see a nigga that's always grinning, he's not to be trusted. And you take Harris, constantly grinning, constantly laughing. This broad laughs if somebody farts in the wind. She's laughing. This is the same woman who distanced herself from her sorority, Alpha Beta Kappa. Alpha Beta Alpha. She distanced herself from her sorority sisters. When they sit there and say, or when the media says, and see, once again, this is the media. When the media says, oh, the first black woman, she's not black. She's not. Because here's the thing. If she really was about her, quote, blackness, how come she couldn't find a black man to marry? She's married to some white dude, some old white dude. This is the same woman that went to in 2023 that went to South Carolina and made comments about the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade, and she says, and I quote, "How dare they? How dare they?" Wait a minute, Mr. Smiley. You don't even have children, so how can you speak about women's rights? You don't even have children. The children that you do have, that's your husband's from a previous marriage. Now, how do we know that you didn't steal him from whatever white woman he had? Because there's a backstory to Kamala Harris, and they're gonna work really, really hard to keep that, to suppress that. There's a backstory. If she's all about her black people, why didn't you marry a black man? What you mean to tell me what no brothers worthy of your time? I get, I don't, I talk, you hear me talk about Obama, but but damn, at least when he went to school and him and Michelle, they're black to a certain degree. She has a white woman. She has a white man. A white man. She's laughing, giggling, this, that, and the third, and people, this, that, and the other. Understand something. This woman has you on. She's got y'all fooled. And then this coalition of women getting behind. Listen, let me tell you something. And this is no knock. This is not a knock on women. Let me be clear on that. Let me be clear. I hate it when people are taken advantage of, man or woman. But right now, I see that there's certain demographic of women are being taken advantage of because here's the thing: when women gravitate to a certain organization, that's because they feel marginalized. They feel that they are not worthy, or they're not worthy, or they feel that their thoughts and ideas are being invalidated. I'm not disputing that, but ladies, when you gravitate to an organization, understand, see, make sure that this organization is for you. Not gravitate because you think this person is going to be helpful because she's a woman. That doesn't make her that doesn't say that she's suitable for the job. And quiet as it's kept, Harris is not suitable for the job. She's not. Now I know some people say, well, Trump is. Well, yes, he is, because here's the thing: Trump is a businessman, so he understands the nature of business, because America is a business. It is not a sovereignty. It's a business. And why it's a business? Because each and every person in this country has what? A social security number, which means if you have a social security number, you are considered a commodity. A commodity is only used in business transactions. Think about that. Harris has no experience. She has no platform, no policy. She has no experience in foreign policy. And here's the other thing. Let's just say this for shits and giggles. Okay. That this broad with her head in the clouds. Say that she does um become president. Do you know that no country will sit down with her? She can't. She can't. Putin won't talk to her. Kim, the prime minister of China, Korea, no Western country, with the exception of Great Britain and possibly one or two allies, they will not sit down with a woman. They won't sit down with her because she does not know. Let me put it this way: she doesn't have good common sense on how to deal. This is a person that is career driven, politically driven, career driven. And see, that's the thing. And when we talk about career driven women, they make it bad for those other women who are career driven, but they know how to balance the lives. They know how to balance the lives with their children and their husbands or significant other. They know how to balance that. This is an individual who can't, make no mistake about it, because here's the thing: she married this man after his children were grown. So what? There's no real responsibility. You can't talk to me if you never had a child, if you never raised a child. There's absolutely nothing you can tell me about this that she knows about women's rights or production or whatever. She can't. There's no way. It's just think about that. Look at that for the reality, and get your heads out of the clouds, because she's a woman, and blah, blah, blah. No, and understand something: she's not black. Get this through your thick skulls. She's not black. She isn't. Barbara Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, is black. In all honesty, Barbara Bass should have been the candidate, the running mate. But Barbara Bass was what? Barbara Bass was too black. She was about making things better for her people, the black people, and they could not have that. So they put this mulatto up there to say, this is going to work. We'll just tout her. But see, here's the thing about some of these women, about people that some of these politically driven women, like this one. Kamala Harris is black when it suits her, when it's convenient or suits her. She's Indian when it's convenient or she suits her. That's the difference. And see, here's the other problem. And see, this is and you have to look at the dynamics and the play. Her Kamala Harris' mother is um, uh, Indian, Asian American or whatever. And then you take JD Vance's wife, who is Indian, whose fat whose wife is Indian, her parents are Indian, from India. See what the Democrats are really afraid of, because here's the thing, they don't tell you this part too, that Indians, they want to say Indian Americans, but they're not. Indians, those people that are from India, they make up a large population. They make up a large number of the population here in the United States. Not only that, but that creates a bridge between both countries as far as trade routes, as far as commodities, trades, business. That creates that. This creates that. Now I'm gonna tell you all. Like I said, I'm gonna stand on that. Donald Trump is going to win because November 5th, it's going to be all over. This dude is going to win. And I say that because they have a full head of state, because of what people are dealing with right now. People are tired. They do not want to deal with the Democrats any longer. And they're not telling. See, this is the other part about the media. And they're not telling people that there is a defection of people who were once Democrats that are now becoming Republicans. They're not telling you this because why? Because people say, "Oh my goodness, people are fighting." They're not. No. People have had enough of the throw a rock and hide your hand, of the throw a rock and hide your hand. They're tired of that from the Democrats. I don't know how. I can't explain. I can't say how many times I've said these are the same people who enslaved you, who want to keep you enslaved, and they're still doing it in 2024. Every Democrat practically has been jumping on the bandwagon for, you know why? They're not endorsing Kamala Harris because she's a woman. They're not endorsing her because she's Joe's pick. They're endorsing her because if she does get in, and that's a huge if, that's like me throwing a rock. That's like me throwing a rock from here to Alaska and saying, I hope it hits. These are people that are jumping on the bandwagon because they all want to, as the Democrats do, they all want a favor. The Democrats have and always will be a self-serving entity. The other problem is that unfortunately, our parents and our grandparents have groomed us, indoctrinated us into this fake candy store BS on these people are going to help us. No, they haven't. They haven't helped us in 50 years. Oh, wait a minute. Let me add 10 more to that. We're in the new millennium. They haven't helped us in 60 years. And just to bridge this jackass Johnson in a public place, in a public meeting, this jackass says the reason why the crime, this is a sidebar, the reason why there's so much crime in Chicago is because of Richard Nixon. I said, you got to be kidding me. Richard Nixon? What does Richard Nixon have to do with the crime in the city of Chicago? That just goes to show you how stupid this sea donkey is. Who says something like that? Only a fool. When this thing go, because this is a train, and right now, and I'm gonna say this and wrap it up. Make no mistake, people. When the DNC comes next month, 19th through the 20th for August, that's when you're gonna really see who the Democrats really are, because it's going to be an absolute it's going to be such a disaster and a barn burner. People are not going to know what to do. yeah, Kamala Harris might get the nomination, and they say quote unquote presumptuous, but they don't even know they don't even have anybody that's viable to even run with her. That's the scary part. And now they're running for cover because they don't know what to do. But that being said, I see the lights flashing in the distance and the helicopter's about to land. So what does that mean? That means that it's all the time that we got here on tonight's show on iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Podcast. Hey, be safe out there. Be safe out there. Hey, the Batman has got to go because somewhere there's a crime being committed.